anytime the four most radical Democrats in the House join together with the four most radical Republicans to oppose a piece of legislation, and they're the only 8 members in the chamber against it, I know I'm going to be supporting it. And indeed now there is a bill on the table which has united the extremists on both sides of the aisle. A bill which calls for President Biden to seize assets from Russian oligarchs and use the proceeds to support Ukraine. Passed the House Wednesday by an overwhelming 417-8 vote. The bill calls on Biden to seize assets exceeding a few $1 million in value from Russian energy companies or oligarchs with wealth tied to the Kremlin. Now, on the far left, 3/4 of the squad, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, and Rashida Tlaib, opposed the measure. They were joined by far-left Missouri Congresswoman Cori Bush. And on the far right, Marjorie Taylor Greene highlighted the quartet of Republicans who voted against the bill. She was joined by Madison Cawthorn, as well as Congressman from Kentucky, Thomas Massie, and Texas Representative Chip Roy. And I think this is so important well beyond this bill, because it shows that the far left and the far right have way more in common than they realize or admit. They share a series of, in my view, poisonous values. They're binded by a deep resentment of anything that might be seen as sensible, non-radical, compromise, status quo. They all want drastic upheaval and despise any moderation. Yes, the reasons for their opposition to this particular piece of legislation are somewhat varied, and we'll break those down in a moment. But broadly speaking, the extremes share this idea that America is a failed state. They want us to be afraid, very afraid, for our kids, for our future. They want us to believe that our democracy is on the verge of collapse and that only their radical views can save us all. And so even on a largely symbolic bill that everyone else in both parties easily rubber-stamped, even on a bill which shows American unity towards Ukraine, a cause which has brought our country together in a way few others have in recent years, these 8 extremists can't find it in themselves to jump on board. These 8 outliers, and thankfully they are outliers, are almost always going to find a reason to be flies in the ointment. And it's because they want to completely disrupt the system. On the far left, they idolize places like Venezuela, while on the far right, it's more somewhere like Hungary. Disorder is also really good for their brands. Think about it. AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene have become 2 of the most well-known members of Congress. They are famous, really famous. But it is so destructive for the country. There are way more of us in the middle than there are on the far left and far right. And many times, the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are speaking for a really small slice of the population, more often than you'd know from watching some of the breathless media coverage about them. Joining us now is Michael Schnell. She covers the House of Representatives for The Hill and has spoken to at least the offices of the 8 members involved. Michael, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. All right, so let's take me through some of the reasons here that these 8 members oppose the bill. Let's start with the Republican side. Why are they opposed to it?
Sure. So, Dan, we'll start first with Congressman Massie. And what he was really concerned about was that this bill would give President Biden unilateral power. And something that he mentioned in his statement was that it would set a dangerous precedent. And I want you to remember dangerous precedent, because that's something that we heard in a couple other statements from other lawmakers. So I'll read you his statement in full. He said, giving Joe Biden unilateral authority to seize property in the United States without any due process sets a dangerous and disturbing precedent. So then we get over to Chip Roy. Chip Roy mentioned that the bill, he said it was vaguely defined, and he was also concerned that this piece of legislation would give the executive branch too much power. So he mentioned, I do not believe Congress should support handing off more of its job to the executive branch and simply trusts the Biden administration to follow due process. So again, there are two things there: unilateral power and increasing power among President Biden and the executive branch. And then there's this idea of setting a dangerous precedent. Those are what we saw among the two Republicans I was able to speak
The
with.
Republicans. All right. And, you know, I always find it interesting that suddenly you have these far-right Republicans who are worried about executive power when, of course, it's the other way around when President Trump was president. But now let's talk about the Democrats. What are AOC and the others saying about why they don't like this bill?
So a couple of the points were pretty similar to what the Republicans said, which, like you mentioned in your intro, not every day that we see these four on the left and these four on the right sort of agree with each other. We'll start with Congresswoman Tlaib. Her main issue was that they would, again, give the Biden administration unilateral power. She also mentioned that idea that there was no due process included in the bill. And third, she brought up the point that there was no evidence, that the bill was asking for a lack of evidence on these assets that would be seized by the government. So she's looking for more evidence that the government actually has the assets that they claim to have. And then if we go over to Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she was concerned that, again, no due process. And she also brought up that this would be a risky precedent. I want to read something from her spokesperson. She said, "This sets a risky new precedent in the event of future presidents who may seek to abuse that expansion of power, especially with so many of our communities already fighting civil asset forfeiture." So again, looking at this idea of even if Congress passes this non-binding, symbolic bill, I may add, it could set a dangerous precedent going forward.
Right.
Congresswoman Bush, she took. No,
yeah,
sure.
I just wanted to just point out that, of course, that it is just so interesting to me that you have these extremist groups joining together as great civil libertarians suddenly on this particular issue. But let me ask you more broadly, you know, is anyone there talking about how sort of interesting, unique, different, unusual, surprising it is that the only 8 people who are opposing this bill are the Marjorie Taylor Greene team and the AOC team?
So I was on the Hill today. I didn't hear too much buzz about this specific bill. I think the main reason why that may be, as I mentioned before, it's non-binding. It's symbolic. Even if this passes, the language in the actual text of the bill says that Congress will urge President Biden to go ahead and seize these assets and liquidate them to help Ukraine. However, it's getting some buzz in the media because you don't every day see, like you said, 4 lawmakers on the left who can be considered the far left and 4 on the right can be considered the far right, sort of agreeing with each other. It's not something that you see every day. So it's not too surprising that it would be catching a couple headlines here and there. Yeah,
and I hope that this forces many in the media and political analysts to think about how much more similar their positions are on many issues than many of them would like to believe. Michael Schnell, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the program. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.